Long days, pleasant nights, and welcome to Kingslingers, a Doof Media podcast journeying through Stephen King's Dark Tower series and beyond. I am your host, constant reader Scott Daly, and joining me, as always, is a random employee of the Texas Book Depository, just trying to figure out what's going on here. Matt, anything exciting happened today?
No, everything's fine. Don't stress. It's all good. I'm fine. How are you?
You can't start just quoting Star Wars at me.
I'm in a Star Wars mood.
I know. You've the people don't know, but the 10 minutes leading up to us hitting record, it's just been Matt constantly referencing Star Wars things.
Yeah, the mood strikes one sometimes.
Well, we're not here to talk about Star Wars. We're here to talk about the time before Star Wars, the 1960s, because this week our series examining Stephen King's 11/22/63 continues with part 10. We're going to be chatting about chapters 26 through 28 of the novel. Jake has been beaten within an inch of his life, and he sees the days and weeks melt away as he slowly recovers, his temporary amnesia preventing him from remembering exactly who he's here to stop. Finally, Matt, the day arrives, 11/22/63, and Jake and Sadie move to stop Lee Harvey Oswald. They succeed, but at a great cost. Matt, what do you think of this week's reading?
Oh, this is great. I should have seen it coming, and I'll say that again toward the end, but just as soon as we were rolling into this climax, I was like, obviously this is the only possible way. If you're going to have a book about stopping the JFK assassination, it has to culminate at the Texas Book Depository on 11/22/63. It's right there in the title. So I guess shame on me, I suppose. But no, I loved it. It was great. It was extremely tense. Like, it was one of those climaxes where I'm actually very emotionally invested in the story, and so I'm just plowing through the whole thing in one sitting. And yeah, it was just really good stuff.
At what point did you go, oh, Sadie's gonna die?
Several weeks ago. but I mean, like, as they're running up the stairs, I mean, I think I basically, like, either at the same time or slightly before, Jake realizes, like, oh, she's gonna come up the stairs and get shot, and that's
I mean, I know we're gonna talk about it when we get there, but man, that moment of realization, like, the way King describes the moment is not like this sudden twist of, oh no, it's Jake is feeling the same way you, the reader, are feeling, which is like, oh, of course,
yeah,
fuck, man, right. And then everything goes from there. Yeah, it's this moment of not even realization, but of just like inevitability, and and he writes it perfectly. He really does.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I this is kind of what we've all been building towards, right? And it's weird because I think you and I both read these pages 2 weeks ago now, and I had to kind of sit down with this again when I was prepping for the show a few days ago, and just like I didn't have time to reread them all over again, but I kind of inevitably did that during prep anyway, and it's just it was amazing how much of it just stuck with me just from that 2 week break period, because there's just so much here, and it's just incredibly captivating from moment one to the end. These are 3 great chapters, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you feel like maybe he had this in mind as the ending, as he's starting the book, since the premise, the situation is basically that man goes back in time to try to save John F. Kennedy. So it's like, well, then of course you imagine this scene, right?
Yeah,
it's like the first thing you imagine, and then you work backwards from there. So
yeah, you take your first tour of the 6th floor museum, which is what the Texas Book Depository is now, and you're like, oh, I'm blocking this entire scene in my head right this very minute.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great stuff. Can't wait to talk about it. Before we do that, we did just want to remind y'all, we went to Bangor a couple weeks ago, and we have released our live recording of the episode. We also did a recap episode. So if you haven't listened to either of those, we recommend you do so. We do appreciate y'all and your kind words about the audio quality in the live episode. Obviously, it wasn't that great, but mostly positive feedback on that. So thank you for listening to it anyway, despite the quality of the audio. We thought the quality of the conversation was worth going through the quality of the audio. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think, if you haven't listened to it, it's not. Scott has very high standards, which is why this show sounds so good. But the audio, I mean, you can tell people are saying easily. So it's just
yes, we did have some listeners who were like, "No, you're right. It's fucking terrible. It's awful." It was like, thanks, buddy.
Look, I could tell everything that was said, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I was one of the people speaking.
True. So thank you for the kind words about that. I'm glad you folks that weren't able to attend got to listen to those things and got to kind of experience that weekend with us, which, as we mentioned on that recap, was definitely the highlight of our entire podcasting endeavor. So thank you again to everyone that made that happen and everyone that came out there. Check out those episodes, but we've got to get back to work, Matt. I don't know if we remember how to do this, but we're going to try.
Yeah, we'll feel our way. We'll listen for the synchronicities and the twinnings, and we'll the 19s. We'll make our way there.
Wow, you just nailed that. Well done. What are we worried about? You got this.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Chapter 26. Our first chapter begins in the immediate aftermath of Jake's assault. I do, Matt, love how King opens this section. This line here: during the next 11 weeks, I once more lived two lives. There was the one I hardly knew about, the outside life, and the one I knew all too well. That one was on the inside, when I often dreamed of the yellow card man. So we're bringing the yellow card man back here in this moment, Matt. A character that was like introduced and not explained and then died mysteriously, and we still don't really have an answer. I'm not spoiling anything, but I do want to tell you that part 6 of the novel, which we will begin and finish next week, is called The Green Card Man. Just so you know. So we're bringing this idea, this concept of the yellow card man back here at the very end of this book, but we still don't really know what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, at this moment, no. In a short while, we're going to have the ghostly apparition / dream of Al tell him yellow card man is the personification of the Adrit past. So it sort of clarifies for us. It's one of the situations where I'm inclined to just take him at his word.
Sure. I mean, whether that's literally true or just Jake using that image, that personification, whatever, right?
Yeah. There's one thing I guess is interesting, because you just brought up that it's the green card man is the next section, and I was thinking like, well, he continually calls him the yellow card man because that's what Al called him, but he became like the red card man, and then he became the black card man, and then so like he was only the yellow card man for a brief window of time, which I don't really have a point other than it's just interesting how the naming of the character is based on something that is not really defining quality of the character.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, he has the card, but it was only yellow briefly.
Yeah. Well, maybe he shouldn't have done that slide tackle. It's not appropriate.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Matt, Jake's injuries are extensive. Broken teeth, broken nose, broken cheekbone, a fractured left knee, a broken left arm, dislocated fingers, abdominal injuries, and worst of all, a brain injury. A brain injury that has unfortunately caused some short-term amnesia. Jake can't remember who's going to kill JFK. He can't remember a lot of other things, but that is the most pressing thing for us. He cannot remember Lee Harvey Oswald's name or where he is or just about anything about the JFK assassination.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, obviously for him and for us, because it's like this massive setback. I guess I was surprised at just how brutal and horrible this beating was, though. It's just painful to live vicariously through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's close enough to death that I don't know. Like, this is the kind of the through line question I've had for you that hasn't had an answer up until this point, and perhaps never will. Is okay. So like, this was the obdurate past, like once again fucking his shit up, right? Like this is the machinations of as Sadie calls it, a malevolent, but Jake says, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but acting against him to try to stop him from doing things. And you just got to be like, man, just fucking kill him. Can't you just do that? Just kill. You got really close. Why can't you just kill him?
Yeah. I was thinking about how like it always kind of half-heartedly tries to kill him, but then fails to, which you could argue it's trying its best to kill him. And then, the other forces in the universe, the turtle is intervening, but
sure,
that doesn't always seem obviously true to me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
yeah,
because I'm just imagining as a sort of contrast, like a sort of Final Destination situation where it's just like, yeah, it's really easy to kill a person if you have control over causality itself. Right. So
yeah,
just like you said, just kill him. So it does seem like he has a guardian angel based on his continual not dying, right?
Yeah, and then again, there's the worry that we're personifying this concept too much, right? I mean, as you mentioned, Al within Jake's dream personifies this concept by calling it the Yellow Card Man. But maybe we are personifying this a little bit too much. And
that's a good point, yeah.
And there's not like this idea that there's like active plotting and planning. Like we talked about the Final Destination thing. It's very clear in those Final Destination movies that death is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fuck some shit up now. And I'm gonna do it in the coolest way possible. And it's like actively planning and linking, as you said, cause and effect chains to make things happen. This just feels like stuff is happening, and because it errs towards preventing a character from achieving their goal, we tend to want to personify it and put motive and desire behind it. But maybe it's just like, you don't belong here, and things are just going to ping off you when you're trying to push against something in a random way, and it's going to even out to stopping you. But yeah, like I don't know.
I mean, yeah, the book is definitely like constructed to make us feel like the past is trying to stop him, but also it is fun to just sit back and imagine like, no, Jake, this didn't happen because the malevolent, obdurate past is trying to stop you. This happened because you were extremely stupid about how you went about making your bets. And like there's no magic required. Like, so, cars almost repeatedly hitting you as you're driving around, that seems unlikely. The gangsters coming to kick your ass because you cheated them too many times, it does not require magic. This was actually just due to his mistakes.
Yeah, very true. But also, like, the constant refrain in this story of the symmetry and the things reflecting off each other, and like the thing I'm thinking of now is when he's watching JFK get to Tampa. Who does he see shaking JFK's hand but the former mobster that burned his house down, right? And just like these events that keep happening in this very specific, interesting kind of way to make Jake think of the past repeating itself and the symmetry and the syncopathy or whatever. Like it seems like there are forces at work here for sure. Whether that's just like Jake just calls that the past. He's just like, when he tells Sadie, he's like, welcome to the past. This is just how the past works. And that's because it's the only experience of the past he has. But it has been like the constant, like it's definitely one of the driving forces of the plot of the story. But it's one of those things that, like, in a different book with a different author, they might just have literally explained up until this point. But King likes to play loose with these things. And by the way, I'm not saying he's never going to explain it, but it probably won't be in the detail of like, here are the rules of how the past works.
Yeah. I mean, we just got done talking quite a bit about the Dark Tower, so I'm well familiar with his.
I'm just refreshing your memory here.
Yeah.
Remember how he didn't say how any of that shit worked in the Dark Tower? Yeah.
With the doors, Scott. Where did the doors come from?
Nobody knows. The magic.
The
one thing I did want to talk about with these injuries, though, Matt, and I know we're going to sound like a broken record here, it does feel like you can see King's own injuries in this part, right? Like, as we learn, as like the detail in how King writes about Jake's recovery, how extensive and painful it is, that he took 7 weeks in a hospital and then more in rehab. He had to fight infection after infection, and like got a little bit better, but then got worse. And then just it all just seemed to me like we talked about this so much with Doomakey for obvious reasons. We haven't seen it as much in this book, but I feel like anytime King's going to be writing about someone recovering from extensive injuries, he's going to be pulling a little bit of experiences into it. And I really felt that. I felt a lot of Doomakey kinship in these chapters, actually.
Yeah, 100%. I was thinking the exact same thing, especially down to the leg injury that leaves him with the limp, which, you know, King's leg and hip were shattered by the accident. And he, I don't know if he actually has a limp, but he certainly did for a while.
He has a whole new hip. Just a whole new one.
Yeah. Very cool.
Very cool.
Better than not.
I guess so. I do love the flashes of consciousness we get, though, as we kind of move into Jake's interior life, you know, because he's kind of going back and forth between these confused dreams to waking up just long enough to see kind of hazy images of the people. Like the way King writes this part, he gives everyone around him a capitalized name. So it's an elderly woman with red lipstick. It's a young couple. It's the young man. I just find this stuff really, really effective. And like, obviously we know who these people are, even without telling, we like, you know, we see that the young couple is Mike and Bobby Jill. Right. And like, he even calls Sadie, I think, the woman with the scar, and the man with the cowboy hat is Deke. But like, just the way it's described this way, I think really like firmly plants you into this feeling of confusion and alienation that he's feeling in these half conscious moments.
So I didn't know about the capitalization thing because I'm audiobooking, but that's
sure.
That's very cool. And I mean, despite not knowing about the capitalization, I agree with the idea that like it's clear from the writing that he knows that he should know who these people are, and so their name is sort of like this totem, or the way he refers to them in lieu of having their name is sort of like this totem that stands in for their name.
Sure.
And I like how that executes.
So slowly, Jake's memory starts to come back, all except for one thing, though, Matt, the name of Kennedy's assassin. Jake reasons that this is because the past is keeping that memory from him. And we already had this conversation, but let's have it again and again and again and again and again. That is an interesting idea, right? Like, once again, Matt, how is it doing that? Like, I'm of two sides of this whole thing, because on the other side I was like, no, it's just you just got a brain injury and your brain is struggling to repair neurons and make connections that it couldn't make before. But also, like, it does seem very weird that specific thing is like the one thing that you haven't been able to link back to again yet. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I understand your being of two minds about this, because you can certainly see it both ways, and the text can certainly be read both ways. At this point, I'm just inclined to believe what Al in his dream tells him, which is like, it's the past that's doing this. It could be wrong, like but it would feel unusual if it were just like, no, that was just a dream. It meant nothing.
Dreams never mean nothing in books. That's for all those out there maybe listening to this podcast for the first time. Let's reiterate this fact. Dreams in books always mean something.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I guess we've talked about off and on is, but I don't know if I've ever exactly articulated it this way, is like, he thinks of it as the past because he's a time traveler, and that's the only frame of reference he has, is like, it's the past. The past is trying to stop me. But like, having the larger cosmology in our minds, and knowing that this is a story where the turtles was referenced, one could look at all of this and say, well, you know, the forces of darkness, Discordia and the Crimson King, are trying to kill JFK, and the forces of purpose and the turtle are trying to save JFK. And all of this craziness that you see happening around him is those two forces duking it out in these metaphysical ways, in a sort of like insomnia fashion, where it's like you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. And like, the funny thing is, you could totally read this entire book having read no other King books and have no awareness of all that stuff I just said, and it would be totally fine. But I will say that this is something that flickers through my mind every once in a while, is like, this is clearly, the purpose and the random.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I like the last time came to Derry, we were dealing with the purpose and the random. We go back to Derry, and it seems like we're dealing with similar things. I think that's fair. I do wonder, like, is that the kind of thing where if he wanted us to go that way explicitly, he would make it explicit? And maybe not. Maybe this is like, I'm trying to tell a different story. I'm trying to have a different tone. I want to accomplish certain thing. I want to make this essentially a love story, and I don't want to pepper it with too much of this other bullshit. But people will pick up on it.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
that are my constant readers.
So I mean, I feel like this is King writing a book that he means to be very broadly appealing and popular.
Mm-hmm.
And Insomnia was him writing a book for weirdos like us. So like I do sort of feel like the same framework underlies all of this, because that's how he thinks about the world and about stories. But he's like, I'm not gonna have two little alien looking guys explain the metaphysics of the multiverse to my protagonist.
Wait, you don't think that would fit here in 11/22/63?
That it would not fit super well. Although, we still got a couple chapters left. Clotho and Lachesis suddenly show up.
How excited would you be?
I would actually be pretty excited, to be honest.
I think the one thing we can do here, though, and I've been intentionally like playing coy with this idea of, are we personifying this too much? I did it again this episode, but I think when we have a statement like this where Al in the dream says the yellow card man is the obdurate past, and when we says he thought you'd die from the beating but you didn't, he thought you'd die of the infections but you didn't, now he's walling off those memories, the vital ones, because he knows it's the last hope of stopping you. And so we are just like, let's just allow ourselves to personify this entity, this force. Like, let's stop being coy about it now. Like, I think, as you said, I just want to assume this is true. Like, why not? Right?
Yeah.
Like, why do we have to be silly and coy about this? Yeah.
Right.
The past is an active force working against our characters.
Yeah. And it can be our operating assumption for now.
Yeah. Matt, suddenly we find ourselves 10 days away from Kennedy's arrival in Dallas, and Jake, mostly recovered, still can't remember Lee Harvey Oswald. They're trying everything, but each time he tries to remember, he's affected physically. He gets his head hurts. He gets dizzy. He has to sit down and rest. Sadie tries a method of memory jogging by driving out to East Texas and recreating Jake's first arrival in Dallas. It doesn't work, at least not in the way Sadie thinks it does, but it does, Matt, help jog something free. Jake remembers Al's notebook. But here, Matt, is where Jake makes a choice. He chooses not to tell Sadie about the notebook or about the fact that he remembered where he kept it. He's already starting to like push her out of this process. And we'll see how successfully that actually goes later on. But I think this is an important kind of milestone of, I think I mentioned this a little bit later, but perhaps putting a little bit of the broom back in the bed. With the two of them.
Yeah, no, it's definitely kind of a disappointing backslide from Jake. I guess slightly mitigated by the fact that he has literal brain damage and is sort of barely holding things together already. But we know that things never go well when you start lying to your quartet, or when you stop lying and then start lying again to your quartet.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's very true. All right, so we move on to chapter 27. This chapter begins a trend of counting down to 11/22/63. So we start, I believe, this first one with on the 17th. I think this is about the point where perhaps you start to realize, oh, so yeah, everything's just going to happen on the day, right? It's going to definitely be the day.
Yeah. Yep. That's like, it's funny how your brain works when you're reading, because like the part of you that is aware of narrative is like, oh yes, that's obviously how this will be constructed. But there's also part of you that like really wants him to stop him before the day.
Yeah.
Because that would be like way riskier and harder to execute. And like those two parts of you are coexisting, and it's
no, definitely.
Yeah.
But it's better. It's better on the day for the book. It
Yeah.
definitely is. I mean, like you're absolutely right. Looking back on it, how could you not build the scene in the Texas Book Depository? Like there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, I agree.
Our chapter, though, begins with a nice domestic scene between Sadie and Jake as she cooks dinner and he helps with dishes. They have this conversation that I thought was worth talking about. Jake, tell me one good thing about the future. Surprisingly, few things came. Cell phones? No. Suicide bombers? Probably not. Melting ice caps? Perhaps another time. Then I grinned. I'll give you two for the price of one. The Cold War is over, and the president is a black man. She started to smile, then saw I wasn't joking. Her mouth dropped open. So the reason I pulled this out, Matt, was I wanted to talk to you as we head to the end of the book. What do you think about Jake's opinions of the past and the present? And as compared to the way they were at the beginning of the novel in his first journey back to 1958, have these opinions shifted and changed over the course of the novel? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think he's become more circumspect about both in a sense. Like he right here, he identifies problems with the future, points out the ice cap, suicide bombers, but then he also correctly points out like, hey, like the Cold War is over and Obama is president. That's, progress, especially in the way that he particularly cares about as a character.
Yeah.
And that he knows Sadie will also care about quite a lot. And yeah, so like a black man being president is like a huge contrast with the world of the past, where it's like, well, that's unthinkable in the past. So he's capable of recognizing that, hey, there are some things about the future that are actually better, mostly having to do with people's attitudes, and also the technology is clearly better. But the root beer sure tastes good in the past. and there's there are some good things about the past. There's some bad things about the past. So I think he just has become. I think he kind of seesawed two different ways, and now he's just kind of balanced, actually.
Yeah, man, it's like so tough. Like equal rights or good tasting root beer. You just can't have both of them,
Yeah, I mean, root beer though.
I mean, it is pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, tough choice. No, I agree with you. I think this is one thing that's really interesting, kind of following his course of this throughout the book, because obviously this place started as an escape for him. I love the setup of Jake as a character who is recently divorced, kind of adrift in his life. He's not miserable, but he's not like super happy. And then he finds this thing, this purpose, this meaning in this place, and it becomes an escape for him, and he falls in love with it. Then he kind of starts to hate it a little bit, and then he starts to love it more. And then the real turn of the moment for me was, we talked about last week, was Sadie's injury, and the fact that this is a place where this injury is not as treatable as it would be in the present.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is one of the catalysts for him, like not only being like the past isn't all that, but also being like, I want to go home, and I'm gonna take her home with me. I want to have my cake and eat it too. But like, I feel like probably in the back, and I don't even think I had to say I feel like, I think this is just true, in the back of his mind for most of the book, he was like, I'm gonna kill this guy, and then I'm gonna take my girl, and we're just gonna live happily forever after in the 1960s. And it's only the catalyst of her getting injured that he's like, no, we got to go back to the present. And I feel like that has caused him to kind of think about the present versus the past a little bit more. And the reason why I'm focusing on this, by the way, is because something that we haven't actually talked about very much over the course of this book is the thing I talked about in the very first episode, which is, this is definitely a story of King looking back. He's reached a certain point of his age, and he's looking back to old stories, looking back to old ideas, looking back to the past and reckoning with it. And I just think it's very important that we have the situation now where this guy's like, okay, I think I have to go home now. And maybe there's good reasons to go home. That this place isn't perfect. Definitely not. And it's not even that great in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And, his place is his own time, you could say.
Yeah.
And we've kind of I have constantly seen this as one of those stories where it's like, this is not really his calling. Saving JFK is not really his calling. His calling is clearly to be this teacher, this mentor figure
Yeah.
who can actually make a positive difference in so many young people's lives. And I don't want to be like too mean or phrase it too harshly, but it's like he's sort of derelicted his duty of doing that, serving that role for the children of 2013 or whatever it was.
11.
11 in favor of trying to save JFK, something that he is not particularly suited for. And I want him to cry off, as I think I've said before.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, our final conclusion about what this means or what this is saying, we'll have to wait until we see the end of the book and what happens. But I agree with that. I think there's, the first thing said to Jake as he walks down those steps is from the yellow card man saying, "You don't belong here." That's the first thing said to him when he comes to the past is, "You don't belong here." And yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Right. I mean, all of that being said, like, obviously I still want him to save JFK and I'm still invested in the drama of that, but
Sure.
Also on a more like character based level, I'm like, this is not who he is.
Yeah. So Jake says goodbye to Sadie, knowing he's gonna go and do the thing on his own without her, at least try to. And I think we talked about this already. This is kind of the broom back in the bed here. What do we, I guess in your mind, the question I have here, what are we supposed to feel about Jake's attempts to cut Sadie out here? Like, because I mean, in his mind, he's doing this for a very good reason, right? It's like he feels there's this very dangerous machine that is the past operating. We're personifying now. It has desires, it has wants, it wants to stop him. It's going to do whatever it needs to do to stop him, and he just simply does not want to put her in the path of that machine, as we see at the end of the chapters for good reason. But I'm just curious what you think. Like, what are we supposed to feel about this in this moment? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how I felt in this moment, because I definitely can see his mentality of, got to keep her safe. He already put her at too much risk by sort of involving her in the betting and letting her know the secret. But I guess one thing that I was thinking is like, well, you sort of can't have it like halfway. Like, once you've made her aware of this and sort of gotten her involved, now she's involved, and you can't put the broom back in the bed. You can't push her back out. That's much worse than never having let her in the first place, actually, because it's like an overt indication of distrust rather than just like, I have a policy of not telling anyone that I'm a time traveler, which is a reasonable policy. So, and like, he clearly needs help is, I think, another thing that I was thinking about at around this point is like, he's just not up to it anymore. Like, you try to imagine, like, having read this whole week's reading, you try to imagine like, how would he have done this if she hadn't been there? And I think the answer is he could not have gotten to Dealey Plaza without Sadie's help. So, and it cost her life, but it was necessary for the mission to be completed. So,
yeah, I think that all lines up with basically the way I feel. I agree with you. I think, like, ultimately this book is about these two people falling in love and getting together, and so like anything that removes them from each other, you kind of just feel like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, I like this idea of you can't tell her a little bit and not tell her all of it. I think that's what we said when he like told her he was coming back to save JFK, but then she was like, "Oh, who's gonna do it?" And he's like, It's like, nah, you can't do that. So yeah.
Makes sense.
All right, 11/18/23. Jake gets a morning visit from his nurse and then spits out his pain pill. I did want to talk about this briefly, Matt, because he looks at this nurse and he says, "I gave her my widest smile. The one that Christy used to say made me look like a game show host on crack. I don't remember." And maybe again, this is just because of my Doomackey in my brain thing. Like, it's Jake's injury recovery is reminding me so much of Edgar Fremantle's injury recovery. But this got me thinking about the fact that these two books that we've covered back to back here, how King is like defining a character that came from a previous marriage and then just like barely defining the events and the conflicts of the marriage, right? It's not that he's not defining them. Like with Edgar, we knew his conflict with his wife, sort of, but it was vague enough to where you and rightfully so we're kind of searching there for something else. I think the same thing is true here with this novel with Jake and Christy, where it's not that their relationship and their marriage weren't defined by the story, but it's just kind of so backgrounded and barely there that you just get little hints and things of something. And there's like this one here is like that Jake has this smile that his wife called a game show host on crack, like is just so flavorful and interesting in giving you a peek at what their relationship was like, but not enough that you really fully understand it, right? I don't know, I just to seeing it twice in a row, even though these books obviously were not written back to back, I thought it's just very interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach to characterization and character backstory. And I definitely feel you that this is an interesting connection to Duma Key. I wonder what's upstream of this idea of characters having ex-wives. But like you're causing me to remember that, like, I think in previous weeks I felt like we were doing something sly and subtle with this previous marriage as a background element, like it's going to come into play in some way. And I think I had the same mistaken impression about Duma Key, where I was like, what's the insidious thing that happened between Fremantle and his wife that's going to suddenly come to the fore? And it's like, no, it was just a bad marriage. It's like not that complicated. And like it's not the case that his prior marriage is irrelevant. It's just not central, you know, like, so it's really just like giving a character a rich backstory without making that backstory the point of the thing that you're doing with the story.
I do think there is some sometimes when we are approaching books the way we approach books and are analyzing them the way we analyze them, we see something like my relationship with my wife ended because she is a recovering alcoholic, and that put a strain in our relationship, and then she eventually cheated on me with someone from AA and we got a divorce, and we the analyzer are like rubbing our hands together. Like there's so much here. Look at all this means so many things, and it doesn't always have to, right? Like I think you're right. It's not as if this relationship is not as if Christy and his relationship with Christy isn't defining of the character of who Jake is and why Jake responds to certain situations in different ways. It absolutely is, but it doesn't have to be more than that. Like we want to take that thing and then extrapolate it out to some larger theme about the story. It doesn't always have to be that way. Like Pam was important to who Edgar is, but Pam was not. Duma Key was not about Pam. 11/22/63 is not about Christy, and it's just interesting that two instances of this that I think we both kind of immediately grappled onto these ideas and these characters and these conflicts that were present at the beginning of the book, and like are ready to mine them for great thematic intent, and it just doesn't necessarily happen.
Yeah, I think the misfire is like we think it's going to be like a Henry Dean situation where it's like, oh, it's not just like Eddie had a brother named Henry and it comes up a couple times. It's like, no, Eddie talks about it at length. It's relevant to the plot. It comes up again in the next book. It comes up off and on for the whole rest of the series.
Yeah.
It's part of who he is. It's part of it's part of his arc and his flaw and his struggle. It's tied to his central flaw. And maybe Christy is kind of tied to his central flaw, but it's harder to see, I guess.
Yeah, I think she is like, but I mean, I think the Henry Dean comparison is perfect because Henry Dean is core to Eddie's central failing as a person and character, and part of the great things he has to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think Christy serves that role at all. She just helped with the inciting incident of the story. I guess the reason I bring this whole thing up is I just feel like in a book like this where I pretend like I don't know what's going to happen and I can be like, "Ooh, Matt, what's the deal with Christy?" When I know this is not much. That's fun, but I'm constantly thinking about the fact that the last book of our series is going to be a fairy tale, and it's going to be a situation in which the first time ever you and I are going to be on the same playing field with this stuff. And I don't want us to spin our wheels so much grabbing stuff that doesn't end up mattering at all. And so like part of me is like, how can I look out for this particular thing? And I don't think there's an easy answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's fine to just sort of accept that sometimes a character is not important, and you miss allocate it. Or we do, or one or both of us does.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah, I think basically we can say at the most basic level, Christy matters because this is a love story, and who the person was with prior to the love story matters in defining how they approach this relationship. So
yeah, I mean, I'm also
as that.
like, I'm sitting here trying to put together like, what is Jake's flaw, and I'm not actually sure, because it's like, well, you can, we kind of won't, as usual, we kind of won't know until the book is over, because we have to see like, well, what is the arc, like what is he,
Yeah.
what resolves, and then we'll know what the flaw was that was
Yeah.
the thing that resolves. But part of me is like, well, the thing that is relevant about Christy is that he like stayed in this shitty situation that was not right for him for a super long time until it just became unbearable. And he never should have
unbearable, you mean she left him?
Actually, no, that's a great point. It wasn't even that he left her.
Yeah.
So he just stayed in a shitty situation literally until he could not. Yeah, and is that a metaphor for going back in time and committing to the bit of, I'm going to save JFK, even though number one, you don't actually care about JFK that much, and number two, it's actually kind of miserable, and the universe keeps trying to kill you. And I don't know. I'm doing this out loud right now, so I'll have to think about this more, and maybe we can touch back on this when we actually finish the book next week.
Yeah, this is cool. I spent way more time talking about this than I wanted to, but I think it's interesting and worth considering. So yeah, let's circle back around to this again when we're all said and done.
Cool.
All right. So after lunch, Jake heads to First Corn Bank. We failed to talk about this bank when Jake first dropped his safety deposit box off here, Matt, but let's do it now. First Corn. It's not a real bank. I looked it up. It's not.
I bet there's a bank called like First Wheat Bank in Bangor because he gets all of his place names from Bangor.
I'm looking it up. No, sorry.
No, okay.
No.
Oh well.
It does feel like a very fitting Stephen King bank, though.
Yeah, I agree.
First Corn. Let me tell you something. As a resident of Texas, corn is not good here. It's not.
It's not a thing. No.
I mean, there's some, but it doesn't taste good. As someone who lived in New Jersey, which has some of the best corn in the world, the corn I eat in Texas sucks. And it's probably just because it's shipped from other places and older and not fresh. But
yeah,
eating corn in Texas sucks, and I really like corn.
It's funny. I've driven all over Texas, and by far the most common crop you see is just cotton. Not any kind of food at all, obviously.
Yeah. That's a digression, but the point is King has a corn fetish. I think this is all pretty clear at this point, right? We don't have to keep pretending like this is not just fact.
Got to bring the corn up in every book. Yep.
But Jake finds his notes, and like a door opening, all his memories flood back to him. He passes out driving on the way home and is woken up by a police officer. I thought the reason I bring this up, Matt, is because this is kind of an interesting exchange that I wanted to kind of ask you about a little bit here. So yeah, he's heading home. He's just got all these memories unlocked, and then he gets one of his dizzy, tired spells that are caused by his brain injury, and he pulls over to the side of the road, passes out, is woken up by a cop. And I was like, what are we doing here? Like this interaction with this cop is really interesting. Why are we doing this? And I think part of the reason why we're doing it is we're not wanting the reader to forget that Jake is not at fighting strength right now, right? Like he's a person who still, even though he has just remembered Lee Harvey Oswald's name, he still like has the risk of just randomly getting so tired that he has to immediately go to sleep, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's super compromised in a really weak position. He's in a really bad shape. I totally agree that like everything in this section, pretty much going forward, the whole post beating section really is just like emphasizing that the odds are now stacked against him, despite all the edges that he came into this situation with, knowing who Oswald was and where he was going to be and where he was going to live, and like all of his advantages have kind of evaporated suddenly, and now he's actually stacked with disadvantages.
Yep, I totally agree. I also think there's a really interesting exchange with the cop here where he says, if this was 2011, I could say you don't have probable cause to search my vehicle, but that's not going to fly in 1963. Just another example of why the present is better than the past.
That's
Stop
true.
Looking back, everyone. Look forward.
Yeah, the cop would have a body cam, and
I just thought a lot of things in my head that I'm not going to say, but yes, it's better now. Promise.
Yeah.
So that night, Jake watches Kennedy's arrival in Tampa. As we said already, he gets to see his former bookie and current syphilis victim shake Kennedy's hand. And then we get this, and this is something I did want to talk to you about, Matt. As Kennedy entered, waving to the standing audience, an elderly gentleman in an alpine hat and lederhosen struck up "Hail to the Chief" on an accordion bigger than he was. The president did a double take, then lifted both hands in an amiable "holy shit" gesture. For the first time, I saw him as I had come to see Oswald, as an actual man. In the double take and the gesture that followed it, I saw something even more beautiful than the sense of humor, an appreciation for life's essential absurdity. So here we go, Matt. What page are we on? What page are we on? Page 800? Somewhere around there?
Yeah.
And Jake has finally seen John F. Kennedy as a human being.
Yeah. It's the moment that I knew would happen and in fact called, but I thought it was going to happen way earlier. And I mean, I guess to make this actually into a point, like he barely cares about JFK even now.
Yeah.
Like you're correct. He sees him as a human being for the first time. And that gives him a slight desire to save his life, obviously, but it's hardly this like burning holy grail quest level of like I must save this man. This man means so much to me. Mm-hmm. He's just a guy. There's lots of guys. He still cared more about the kid who he saved. By far. So.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think we can say this now at the end. Like we've got a few chapters left, but like how much of a non-entity John F. Kennedy is in this book, because like even in this final moment, even in 11/22/63 itself, we don't see him, right? Like the final conflict is with Oswald. The final conflict is not saving Kennedy; it's preventing Oswald. He's not rushing out to the limo and like ducking Kennedy's head down, right? He's stopping Oswald. Yeah. Kennedy doesn't exist essentially in our story. He's a thing to prevent from happening, but nothing more. And it's not to say there's not opportunities, right? Like we know he lives after this event, so like he could walk up to Jake and they could have a conversation in the very beginning of next chapter. I'm not saying that won't happen, but this is a big book, and Kennedy hasn't mattered for so long.
Yeah, right. I guess this reminds me that for Jake and for Al, I think it's less about Kennedy the man and more about this like symbol of like America. America was good, and then Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy, and ever since then it's all been downhill. and it was the watershed moment, and it was all because Kennedy. And it wasn't like because Kennedy was Jesus. It was just like things were on track, and then this horrible thing happened, and then they seemed like they went off track, which is really a sort of magical thinking. Real, like I don't remember if we pointed this out at the time, but it's kind of silly to be like, oh yeah, if the president hadn't been assassinated in the early 60s, it would be that meme picture where it's like the Star Trek future.
Yeah.
It's like, no, basically a bunch of shit would have happened either way, and there would be different problems, and it would. So like
we did talk about this. We did, yeah.
But it's just reminding me, like, it never even originally was about like, gotta save this man's life. It was more like, we've got to save the future.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way that like trying to prevent 9/11 is not about, I really liked those two towers, right? Like those buildings really matter to me.
Yeah.
No, it's about what it represents and what it means, and the net effect of that thing happening are, which is unique in these things, I think, right? Because like, I don't know, like with the whole go back and kill Hitler thing, like that's definitely about the things that Hitler does, not Hitler itself, but it's also kind of about Hitler himself, right? Like it's like, fuck this guy, I'm gonna go kill him.
Yeah, right. Because nobody ever says, I'm going to, kidnap baby Hitler and bring him back to the future where he'll be raised, in an orphanage, or I'll raise him myself, or I will give baby Hitler's mom a big pile of money so that she can, right? Like, it's the same thing we talked about earlier. Like, why do you have to kill Oswald? Why not just hand him a briefcase full of cash and ensure that his timeline diverges? Nobody ever thinks that, obviously.
Yeah. Good stuff. Jake checks Al's notebook and finds that the days leading up to the assassination are sparse with notes. This is something you mentioned already, Matt. As we get closer and closer to the date, our advantage as time travelers starts to go away, especially in this case, because Al was not planning on getting up to this date, right? Like, the plan was take this guy out in April and then we can go home. We don't need to know all the details of October and November, because it won't matter. And essentially the things that we do know are just things that are in the history books, right? These are things not gained from Al's living and observing the past, because he didn't make it this long, actually. So when we look at the day itself, we only get the important stuff, which is 11:55, assembles and loads, 12:29, motorcade arrives at Dealey Plaza, and 12:30, Oswald shoots 3 times. Third shot kills JFK, which is things that everyone that has a history book knows. And all that really does for us is give us like a hard time to count to as our characters scramble towards this.
Right.
So Jake, unable to sleep, goes outside and strikes up a conversation with his neighbor, Mr. Kanapensky. And this is one of those moments that is just like vintage King in the best possible way. It's this really small moment where he lets his characters and us perhaps breathe for a little bit as they prepare to make their final decisions. Jake is kind of still torn about what he wants to do here. And Mr. K, we find, is listening to swing music on the radio, saying he used to be able to do the Lindy with the best of them. And I love that, like, Jake is so used to this kind of thing that he doesn't even comment on it. Like, he doesn't comment on the synchronicity of this. He's just like, whatever. Like, no, he doesn't even say whatever. He just doesn't say anything, because it's just like, yeah, of course this guy's, he's listening to swing music and did the Lindy when he was younger, of course.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's I think to the degree that he even, well, yeah, you're correct that he doesn't acknowledge it at all, but I think it's like he's just learned, like, oh, this means I should pay attention.
Yeah.
Because the universe is sort of drawing my attention to this thing. But it's he like you said, he just takes it in stride.
Yeah, I mean, it's like every other moment up until this point in the book, he would have been like, yes, the echoes of the past once again, or something like that. And we don't even have that here. But this is an important conversation, though, because he asks Mr. K, what would you do if you knew someone was going to do something bad, what would you do? Could you talk them out of it? Would they try again? What do you think? And Mr. Kanapinski basically reads this as, oh, you mean the guy that did that to your girlfriend's face? And he just lets him believe that. But of course, we're talking about Oswald, right? And Kanapinski says, sane men will often take a hint. Crazy men rarely do. Saw it often back in the sagebrush days before electric lights and phones. Warn them off, they'll come back. Beat them up, they'll hit from ambush. First you, then the one they're really after. Jug them up in the county, they'll sit and wait to get out. Safest thing to do with crazy men is to put him in the penitentiary for a long stretch. Or kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is like his final moment of like, what am I gonna do? Like, am I gonna kill this guy? What, like, is there any way out of this? Is there any way to do this doesn't end in me killing this person? And he comes across the first person he sees. As you said, he gets like a hint of metaphysical importance through the swing dance music, and he asks this man the question, and he tells him essentially exactly what he wants to hear, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For some strange reason, I've been thinking a lot about the Dark Tower recently.
No way.
And I was thinking about the idea of a gunslinger. It was tickled for me in this moment because, the archetype of the gunslinger is, a sort of knight, a sort of hero, but also a very cold, sort of cold-blooded person who's able to do what needs to be done, even if that means just killing a dude who needs killing, extrajudicially, right? And so it's an idea that I think sits in an interesting place in King's fiction because in so many ways he's like you've said, a softie, and someone who's very concerned with justice and fairness and what is right. But very often there will be characters like gunslingers and Jake, who I think is an honorary gunslinger at this point, who concludes, I think rationally, like sometimes a guy just needs killing.
Yeah. This is absolutely a kind of a constant refrain throughout a lot of King stuff, right? That like, sometimes there's nothing to do but kill. And I think that is a very gunslinger type thing. And yeah, I mean, and I think it's interesting in the case of this story too, because like, we'll get to Oswald himself in the moment, in a bit, but no, I like that line of thinking a lot.
Cool.
All right, so 1963, moving right along. Jake knows he can't just take Lee's rifle. He can't shoot him at Ruth's house. There's too many innocent people there. He could, he reasons, just walk up to the book depository and just shoot him there, but that will lead to his arrest, and he wants to accomplish the mission and get Sadie, so he wants to do both things.
This book is just a masterclass in adding like believable, but yet at the same time extremely frustrating complications.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I pushed back so much when we had people message us about like, I don't understand the story of this book. Why can't he just like basically munchkining time travel like we did early on? Like this is like, this doesn't make any sense. He could just do this, and this. I really do think this book just does a really, really good job of explaining why those particular simpler paths forward just won't work for our character.
Right, because it's his life, right? It's not this little thing off to the side that he can just munch in and then go back. It's like, no, this is his life now. Sadie is at least as important to him as all the rest of this.
Yeah. So he says this in this moment: if I had to give myself up in order to stop Oswald, to sacrifice myself in hero speak, I thought I could do that. But I didn't want it to play out that way. I wanted Sadie and my pound cake too. I guess my question for you, Matt, is this idea that he would be willing to give up everything to stop Oswald. Like, he doesn't want to, but if it came down to it, he would do it. Does that surprise you at all that he would say that? And when he says it here, do you think he means it?
It's a really interesting question. I don't know that I even formed an impression of that in the moment. I kind of had to think about it. So part of me thinks like he's been heading toward this goal for so long that it's taken on this huge significance for him that maybe it didn't originally have. And I think you're right to remind us that he didn't care all that much at the beginning. It was the thing Al wanted to do, but maybe it's become something that he feels that he needs to do. It's become a purpose for him, just out of like habit. So and then as to the question of whether he means it, I mean, I think he demonstrates the truth of that because he's willing to get into a shootout with the man at a severe disadvantage in firepower, which he could have easily just like not done and let Oswald kill Kennedy. But he when it comes to the final moment, he actually does. He puts his life on the line. He could have very easily died there. So I do buy that he would do it. It's interesting though, just to ask, like, at what point did that kind of become true for him?
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny because I was, as you were talking, I was thinking about this idea as like, would I give my life to save John F. Kennedy? And that's an interesting question because, like, I think a person wants to believe if you're walking down the street and you see another person about to shoot someone else, you would do anything in your power to help that person, right? Like, I think everyone wants to believe that about ourselves, right? That someone's in help, you can help them, you would do that, even if it could possibly put yourself in danger. I think people want to believe that they would do that, and I genuinely do believe. I think I would do what I can in a situation like that. But it's a completely different equation when we're talking about going back in time and fixing something that already happened, right? Like, if you told me I could go back in time and like save my parents from being killed, or my wife, or my children, or someone close to me that is incredibly important to me, and I would have to give up my life to do it, that's an easy decision. But like a thing that's already happened, even if it resulted in bad things happening, but you have to give up your life to prevent it. Now I'm starting to go, like, would I give up my life to save John F. Kennedy, knowing that life continued past John F. Kennedy, and I've experienced I don't know. That's a harder question, I think.
I mean, for me, it's like an easy no, and the reason is like and this, I think we talked about this a little bit. Like, it was important that we have Jake be a guy who has like a failed marriage, and like that's apparently his only human relationship that he gives a crap about in his life. Is a failed marriage. So like he's not risking anything. If he had a kid, I don't think he would have done any of this, because it would be like, I'm not even going through that door, because that would risk slightly different sperm cell reaching the egg, and now the kid is dead, right? Like you don't screw with the past once you have kids. So that's why it's an easy
everybody
no.
knows that. Yeah,
everybody knows that. So that's why it's an easy no. It's an easy no in a sort of like perhaps Munchkin like escape hatch, but I still think it's true that like you just you can only, the answer can sort of almost only be yes if things are just so bad for you that it's your only option. I don't know. I don't want to be overly narrow in saying that, because I'm sure I'm missing something, right? Like there are, you could step back from it and be like, okay, well, what about Hitler though? Like Hitler or Stalin, like one of these people who killed tens of millions of people. You could sort of make a utilitarian argument that like, okay, but what about this, right? So
true. I think that's why this is a little bit more complicated than just an easy yes or no in the end. Spoilers, this is going to be our discussion question this week, folks, to just start thinking about your answer now. I think that the Hitler or Stalin is good, because like my gut reaction when we were talking about that was like, I would want to take those guys out right up until it meant that I was going to get shot. But at the same time, it's like, isn't that selfish and immoral of me? What is it?
Yeah, I think the wheels come off morality when you have time travel, because it's like that's just not a framework within which we are equipped to make these sorts of choices. And I reject the assertion that we should be forced to.
So you're rejecting the question. Okay. You told me it was a good question, and now you are just
No,
on the show rejecting it out of hand.
I mean, you can answer the question, but I don't think you're forced to answer in any particular way by what you would call morality. Like, it's just like, this is an outside context question. There is no correct answer within the frameworks of morality that we have.
Yeah, yeah. I guess my answer to the first questions I posed you myself is like, was this surprising, and do you think Jake means it? I like what you said about he kind of proves it positive by engaging him in a gunfight, but I do feel like that's just thing that kind of happens and is not like the primary part of the plan. I guess I was a little surprised. Like, it's one thing to like get yourself into a situation where suddenly, like, out of the blue, you have to possibly give your life up, but to like look back on it in this moment and be like, yeah, I mean, I guess if it came to that, I would do that. It's like, really? Would you? Really? That's surprising. Surprising. Yeah. Jake is a better dude than me, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I think another part of it might just be, okay, so the way you framed it was like, it's a little bit above and beyond to go back in time to save a person who has already died. But Jake he no longer really sees this as the past. I mean, he refers to it as the past, but it's sort of his world now. So for him, it's just, I got to save this guy. He's going to die. And if anything, the idea that JFK is supposed to be assassinated is like ephemeral, and was like, well, maybe we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, to put it back to the way he frames it to Mr. Kanapensky, like, this is not, would you go back and pass to save JFK? This is, if you know someone was going to kill someone else, would you have a moral obligation to try and stop them? And like, if you remove time travel from that equation, the answer becomes yes, right? Like, if I know someone's going to like wake up tomorrow and shoot someone, if I know that for a fact, that like, this person told me he was going to get up tomorrow morning and go shoot someone, do I not have a moral obligation to do something about that?
Yeah.
Yes.
That seems, yeah. More clear cut in that case. I agree with you.
So, and I think you're right. That's where his head's at. His head is not at, do I have an obligation to go back in time? It's because King has created this thing where he's required to live in this place for so long, it stops being the past and just becomes the present. Then his moral choosing is much simpler than it would be for us, like playing at this idea in our seats here.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. Sure.
All right, so Jake goes and gets his gun from under the porch, where after he tossed it under there right before he got beat up. He grabs a gun cleaning kit and some ammo, and then goes out to Dealey Plaza. 3 years later, Matt, he's sitting on the same bench, observing the same squat, square brick depository and its weird aura of importance and menace. Finally, his plan forms. I can't kill him before the 22nd, but what if I kill him on the 22nd as he's assembling his rifle? Ah, there we go. That's something.
Yeah, that's better than nothing, I guess. Sure, yeah.
I mean, it does, like, he doesn't come right out and say what his plan is, right? And we don't even have a full picture of what his plan is by the end of this week's reading, but it seems like you can kind of start to craft in your head what his idea here is. It's like, if he walks up on Wednesday and shoots this guy in the head, everyone's going to be like, hey, that's murder. You can't do that. But if he walks up on Friday and shoots this guy in the head as he's putting the rifle together that's going to shoot John F. Kennedy, then he can just be like, I told you guys he was going to kill the president and you didn't listen to me, so I decided to deal with it myself.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't think it's a very good plan if the goal is to get away scot-free, because he's still going to get arrested.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, okay, prove that he was going to kill the president.
Well, he was there.
He was there, but it's like
fired gun.
No, I mean, in this case, yes, because he fired the gun.
Yeah.
In what actually happened, he kind of lucked out.
Sure.
To the extent you can say that when his beloved was killed horribly.
Mm-hmm.
But if Oswald had if the like just because there's a rifle there doesn't prove Oswald was going to shoot the president. It's like maybe you brought the rifle. It's
Yeah.
not as clear cut as he wants it to be, I think.
Especially since George Amberson is not going to hold up to scrutiny by
Yeah.
the federal government, right? Like the
Yeah.
first thing they're going to do is look into him and realize all this shit is bogus.
Yeah.
He's like, don't worry, I Russian spy.
Yeah. There are going to be so many George Amberson conspiracy theorists in this timeline.
Yeah, no, totally. But yeah, I mean, you can see the formation of a sort of plan in order to get away with this, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I love how this part ends, though. I took one final glance back at the book depository over my shoulder. It was looking at me. I have no doubt of it. And of course it was going to end there. I'd been foolish to imagine anything else. I'd been driven towards that brick hulk like a cow down a slaughterhouse chute. I like when King just like says what we're thinking in the book. Like it just makes his character come to the exact same realization that we have at about the exact same time.
Yeah, I agree. That's delightful.
All right, 11/20/63. Jake wakes up 2 days before D-Day with the sudden knowledge that Sadie knows he's been dishonest with her, something that actually ends up being completely correct.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of sad in its own way, right? Like the fact that she knew he was lying and then he knows that she knows is just like, oh, we're just used to being dishonest with each other. And like, this is how we have to play this relationship. Just makes me a little sad.
Yeah, it is. I mean, also just kind of indicates that their rapport, their kef, if you will, is so strong that they immediately sense like mutually when there's like distrust and deception happening.
Yeah, no, good point. So that makes me a little less sad. But yeah, it's just like you can kind of like imagine what the scene in Sadie's head went like when she was like, oh, he's lying to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to lie to him and trick him. And I'm going to show up way earlier than he expected because I know he's lying to me to surprise him. It's that, I don't know. Well, it shouldn't have to be that way.
I agree. I mean, I think there's still something beautiful in how they're able to get past that and then work together effectively.
Yeah.
I think like that's the kind of thing that speaks to how deep and true their relationship really is that it is able to recover from these mistakes that they make. Or
you're not wrong. Yeah,
mainly Jake making the mistakes, but
yes. Has Sadie? Oh wait. Has Sadie done anything wrong in this relationship? Let's take a step back. Let's see.
Well,
no.
I think the closest to the edge would be just like not taking the warnings seriously when he was like, your ex-husband's gonna come for you. But it's
is that a relationship mistake or just like a people mistake? I don't know.
I think I don't even know if it's a mistake because George/Jake was acting completely insane. And I probably would have ignored anything he was saying at that point too. So
yeah, I would have been like, believe it or not, I know my ex more than you do, random person I met 3 months ago.
Right.
So yeah. I think she's been pretty flawless in this relationship. Unless you would want to argue her mistake is taking him back. Ooh.
Spicy.
Jake leaves Sadie a note apologizing, saying that she'll probably see his name and picture on the TV, but that's part of the plan, which I think Matt is again more evidence towards that he's he's got this very complicated, maybe won't work plan here. But the most important thing is don't go looking for him. And I feel like this is a common Stephen King character trait where someone says, don't go looking for me. And nobody ever listens to that ever.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, it is very dramatic. It creates a very dramatic situation because you're like, well, obviously you understand Jake's desire to do this alone, but also kind of want, I think something you said a minute ago really hit me where it's like, this is fundamentally a love story. Like, yeah, it's a time travel story, but it's like trope wise and like what you care about is the love story.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously you actually want Sadie and him to do this together, even if it's sort of, stupid, like,
Yeah.
to want that, because it's more dangerous. But it's like, well, they should be together. They should be
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. I agree. Jake packs up and decides he's going to hide out on Mercedes Street for the next couple of days. He ends up staying in Lee's old apartment itself, haggling with the landlord until he gets permission to rent it for just a week. I think maybe we've already mentioned this, Matt, but it's just a good refresher of, as we're kind of counting down the days till this big moment, we are kind of playing the hits of Jake's time here, right? Like, he goes back to Dealey Plaza. He goes back to Mercedes Street. He goes back to Neely Street. Like, he's going through the motions of all these places he lived and these parts of his quote unquote life in Dallas, as he prepares for this final moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's sort of reminding us to like it's sort of I'm not sure what the right word is, like a recap, a reminder, a culmination, a summation, I think is the word I was looking for. Just we're taking stock before we move on.
Yep.
To the end. Yeah.
And I mean, how do you feel? Like, he deals with this landlord pretty great, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's actually a thing that's consistently delighted me about the book is like just watching Jake transform in so many ways over time, where like I don't feel like the Jake at the beginning of this book would have talked to this landlord, would have sort of like just basically dominated this landlord the way that he does at this point in the story. Like, some of the lines that Jake drops here could have come out of Roland's mouth, and they're just like icy harshness and directness. It's just great.
Yeah, I mean, we had a discussion question weeks ago that we'll be reading the answers for finally this week about the way he treated a couple characters.
Mm-hmm.
And this seems in line with that same thing. But in here, I think makes it clear to me, at least, that what we were doing with those moments is showing Jake having much more strength of character and conviction in getting the things that he wants. Because I agree with you. I don't think that Jake that first walks on the scene in 1958 would talk to people this way. And here, I think it does make it pretty clear, your personal feelings about how he handled those other two characters aside, and we will go through those in a sec, like that this is supposed to be seen as pretty universally a good thing.
Yeah, I felt that way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. I also really like this quote. Mercedes Street, originally raucous, was strangely silent, like a play before the curtain goes up on the last act. I thought just the tone and the mood of the place is now matching Jake's mind. I think is pretty great.
Yeah, it was funny. I was thinking earlier about how like this book basically hit a point of like actually uncomfortably tense for me at around this point.
Nice.
Which is like good, right? Because like you want fiction to be able to move you, obviously. But I was like, oh, like this is like I think I basically finished in just one rush after hitting about this point, because I was just like, I can't stop and not it actually, I don't even know if that's quite accurate. I think it was so intense and anxious making that I actually had to stop, because I just was like, so I would like stop and then I would resume it and then like do something and then I would like resume, because I couldn't actually just put it down, right? I couldn't just not finish, but it was too intense to just do it all the way through. So yeah, sorry, this happened 2 weeks ago, but now I'm clearly remembering, like I was actually like pausing and then resuming again an unusual amount because of how intense it really was.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. It is now 11:21:63. Running out of time now. Jake is restless. He goes and grabs some coffee and then sits around, tries to read while killing time. He's basically at this point kind of just waiting for the obdurate past to make its move. And he starts thinking about what would happen if he failed. And I love this quote here. It could happen. I know it could. If it did, I'd have a decision to make. Find Sadie and marry her, or go back to the start all over again. Thinking about it, I found there was really no decision to be made. I didn't have the strength to go back and start over. One way or another, the trapper's last shot. I love that idea. It's not the first time he's echoed this idea of just considering how awful it would be to have to redo all this. But just here at the end, even the day before, just sitting and thinking like, this is it. I'm not doing this again. This is it for me. I win here or I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're totally on the same page with him. I mean, beginning of the book, we envisioned Jake maybe doing multiple loops.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not that he did what, two or three times through the door.
Yeah, 3.
Right?
Yeah,
But
3.
but hardly the munchkinry we were envisioning. And at this point, yeah, it seems totally nuts that he would go through the door and just start over like that. That's
yeah,
understandably not on the table. Yeah,
just go through the motions of Sadie again. Yeah,
right.
and do all that over. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jake reads both of the novels he's brought, and this is I only bring this up because this is to me kind of a funny Kingism, where King is such a to lack of a better phrase, constant reader, that he also makes every one of his characters just be like reading books all the time. Like Matt, really enjoy reading books, obviously, but like the idea that I'm tensely and anxiously waiting for an event that's going to happen tomorrow that could change my life forever, and I'm going to be able to read 2 entire books in that time is just insane to me. There's no way I'd be able to do that.
No. I mean, maybe when I was in high school, I could have done that. But
And I know they're probably not like novels of the size of like this book or Shogun. They're probably just like small, genre paperbacks. They're only a couple hundred pages, but still.
Yeah. Still. Maybe when I was
wouldn't
in
be
high
able to
school,
focus on a book. I wouldn't be able to do it.
I mean, it's interesting. I feel like I've used reading as a way of like distracting myself from something before, but I think it depends on like the severity of the thing. Because if it's this big and like life-threateningly big, I feel like I would not be distracted by the book. I would just be unable to focus on the book.
Yes, exactly. Yep. We also got this part. I thought about getting my own unfinished book out of the trunk of my car, but the idea of reading it was sickening. Like this, the kind of subplot of Jake's opinion on his book has been a fascinating thing to follow throughout the course of this, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I'm not even sure exactly where this, feeling of being sickened by it comes from. I think he's just maybe he's just like realizes that it's not very good, and that's simple as it is.
I think that's part of it. I think the book represented the lie life that he built, right? Like it reminds me of the time that he said he was growing to hate George Amberson's name. He hates that name. Like it's just like the dissolution of the lie that he was creating to live in this place.
Yeah.
But also this book is it.
Yeah.
Right? It's also it. So continuing the train of what is Stephen King saying about it?
Uh-huh. That is really interesting, because I was just going to say, like, it's also about this period of time when he was in Derry and it just everything sucked. His life sucked. He hated it.
Yeah.
And this is like a hate letter to Derry. And maybe he just doesn't want to read that because it just is going to make him feel bad and feel all those feelings again.
Yeah.
And then, like you just said, maybe Stephen King also kind of feels the same way about it in some ways, where that was one of the funny things that happened when we were in Bangor was I was like, this is such a lovely town. Why did he depict it as the worst place in the world? And I mean, first of all, it's fiction. I know that. And it's not actually Bangor, it's Derry. And, but also like maybe, the place you grow up is unique to you and your perception of it is unique.
Yeah.
And it is not going to be the same perception of a guy who comes in for a weekend and sees the sights, obviously. So I'm not actually being like, Stephen King made a mistake. Bangor is actually nice. It's like, no, that's not the right way of thinking about this. Anyway, it's interesting to consider whether what he might mean by putting it in his story in this way.
Yeah, I don't want to go too much of a tangent on this, but I think this is a good conversation. Bangor is really nice, and Bangor also had a lot of problems. Like the Adrian Mellon story, as they talked about on the tour, was based off a real person being killed. And King wrote that into it specifically to draw attention to it and then to kind of call out his town in a lot of ways. And I mean, I think as much as it like rips Derry / Bangor a new one, there's also clearly a deep amount of love for that place in those books and in that time of his life and that place and the magic of childhood in a place like that. I think it is interesting that we don't see any of that in this book. Like there's no, like, I guess that's not entirely true because we do get the Richie and Bev portion again, which is like calling back to this amidst the horribleness, there is beauty and wonder and incredible things in this place. So it's definitely still there, but minimized, I think.
Yeah, true.
In the story. But
good point.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think I've just decided that Stephen King hates it. And if you were to tell him it's your favorite of his novels, he'd probably roll his eyes at you or something. That's what I've decided.
Maybe.
Fortunately, it is my favorite of his novels.
I honestly can't tell if you're serious right now. I mean, it is interesting to think about, like, what if you wrote a book? What if you personally wrote a book when you were, I don't know, I don't actually know how old King was, when you were 28, just making up a number, and people are still talking to you about it today. You'd kind of be like, yeah, glad you liked it.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah, it's weird because obviously the book was incredibly important to him, and I think for a writer, all books are incredibly important to you at the time of rewriting them. And then a lot of writers, especially ones that write a lot, move on. And then the next book becomes this incredibly important thing to you. And I don't know. Ultimately, no, I don't think he hates it, but maybe a little bit.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, most of the things that I've written, I've come to feel a little weird about over time. Not hate, but I'm just like, that definitely reflects a very particular thing that was going on with me that I almost used the writing to like process.
Yeah.
And now it is not in me anymore. And so the artifact of the writing feels kind of strange and other.
But I bet there's a lot of writers that have a thing where like you write 2 books and like you think one is pretty good, but you think this one's like awesome. And then everyone keeps coming up to you and telling you how much they love the one that you thought was pretty good. When you're like, yeah, but that one over there is the real, I loved that one. Why is no one asking me about that one? And that could like compound and end in getting more frustrated and having more complex and possibly negative feelings towards the book that you didn't hate, but it's just the one that everyone always wants to talk to you about, and you don't want to talk about that book anymore. You want to talk about this book that nobody talks about.
Yeah, it's possible.
I don't know. This is complete conjecture. All of this entire conversation.
Yeah. It's all in good fun.
Yeah. So Jake finally manages to fall asleep, and after a few hours is woken up by it's Sadie, Matt. She found him. She found him in Fort Worth.
Busted. It's
and that sorry, go ahead.
No, it's like she sort of was looking for him the whole time and finds him on like the day before, right? It's perfect.
So yeah, that brings us right into chapter 28 and into the day 11/22/63. Here we go. Jake basically wakes up, realizes Sadie in there, and then is like, no, you can't come. It's too dangerous. What are you doing here? But she rightly points out that there's absolutely no way he can do this alone. This does, though, Matt, remind me of like comic books when Gwen Stacy is like, Peter, it's my decision to make whether I want to be with you, even though you're Spider-Man. It's not your decision. It's my decision. I know you tell me it's too dangerous, but I get to choose. And then she dies. So it's like, yeah, but maybe Peter was right then. This is exactly what happens here. It's like, no, it's too dangerous for you, Sadie. It's too dangerous. I was right. You're dead.
Yes, but also maybe I still think they would have failed to save JFK if she hadn't come. So
yes,
it's sort of a trade, really. It's like it wasn't. We've talked about this in a way that I think is understandable because Jake is the protagonist, but the decision is is basically the same decision for Sadie, except she actually does, trade her life for JFK's.
Yeah.
And for her, the morality of the choice is kind of even more straightforward, because it's just somebody came to you and tells you that somebody's going to kill the president, and are you going to help?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's what she says, right? Is like, it's not just helping you. He's the president. He's my president. And if I want to help him. She does say she voted for Nixon though. So break up with her, man.
So like, don't you want to read the version of this story where it's like the character is going back in time to stop the assassination of Richard Nixon that happened in the 60s? And
I gotta say, Matt, I think that would be a pretty short book.
Oh yeah.
I think Al would be like, Jake, you got to come back with me. We have to prevent the assassination of Richard Nixon. And Jake would be like,
But see, in this story, Nixon was assassinated before any of the bad Watergate stuff came out. So his legacy is actually just, he opened up China. He was a great ambassador and statesman.
So we save him, and then Watergate happens.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're like, oh, drag.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, sure. I love it. I guess
he's going to save Kennedy, and then some horrible shit is going to be revealed about Kennedy.
I mean, it's possible, right?
Yeah.
We'll find out.
I mean, this, like, the fact is, we like, presidents, figures who die are always remembered, like, they're sort of lionized, right? So like, if Kennedy had just had a normal presidency, it would not be like, John F. Kennedy, America's son. It would be like, he'd still be around.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this before. I like to call it the Firefly effect, where that show, had it gone on for 5 seasons, would not be nearly as fondly remembered as it is because it got canceled after 1 season.
That is true.
Yeah. So maybe we shouldn't call it the Firefly effect, because it clearly existed prior to one science fiction show that came out in the 2000s, but I'm going to stand by it.
I mean, it's a good evocative example.
Meanwhile, Matt, it's 8 a.m. and Kennedy is in Fort Worth giving a speech. I just want to say, like, it is just textually true that Kennedy flew from an Air Force base on the outskirts of Fort Worth to Love Field, smack dab in the middle of Dallas, which is just an incredibly short distance away. Like, I said in the notes 15 minutes of a flight. It's probably less. Like, it's the type of flight where, like, you take off, you don't even have time to get to cruising altitude. You just take off and then you're immediately landing again. I mean, I guess this makes sense because they'd have to shut down, like, highways in order for him to drive, but that's just wild to me. That, like, was there not a helicopter? When were helicopters invented?
I don't remember when helicopters were invented. I mean, they had them in Vietnam, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think there's probably all kinds of logistics that we don't think about. Like, if they flew into Fort Worth and then drove to Dallas, they'd have to drive back to the plane.
That's true.
Right. So like, that's two motorcade trips. And then I started asking, like, how did the Secret Service vehicles get to Dallas in the first place? Or are those not Secret Service vehicles? Are those just like some sort of armored limo that is in every city? And it like, when the president came to our college, when we were in college, where did the black armored cars come from?
I assume there's either a rental service or they've just positioned black armored cars all around the country. It's the government.
It's probably that, actually. Yeah. But where are they? There's like a garage somewhere with a bunch of black armored cars just waiting for the president.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the limo, I think, didn't Obama call it like the tank or something? That's like the beast, whatever. The limo that presidents drive around in now, there's got to be multiples of those, right?
Sure.
Or do they just like literally like drive the thing? It's like, all right, the president's gonna fly to California tomorrow. I guess not tomorrow. In 2 weeks, let's drive the limo all the way out to California. I mean, they probably put it on like a cargo jet, right? I don't know.
It
I
probably
don't know.
goes on it because it's like if he's going to be in California and then he's going to be in New York, like gotta get the car there too. Yeah, it probably goes on a cargo ship, plane. I think you're right.
This sounds like a logistical nightmare, though. Yeah. It sounds like a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah.
It's better when we just let our presidents just travel in convertibles.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good point.
Nothing bad ever happened with that.
Yep.
All right. So our characters prepare to leave Mercedes Street, and as they do, they find Jump Rope Girl once again. And Matt, we learn her name is Sadie because of course it's Sadie.
Mm-hmm.
Of course it is.
Yep, of course.
So they hop in their car. They're tailing behind a bus that's also heading to Dallas. And this is when Sadie explains how she found him. She remembers offhand that he said he lived on Cadillac Street when he was in the middle of one of his kind of memory loss moments, but that wasn't quite right. And so Sadie got a map and looked up the street names that were named after cars, and none of them make sense until she finds Mercedes Street in Fort Worth. That just feels right to her. So she goes driving up and down Mercedes Street, which the book says is a very long street, until she finds Jake's car. And so, Matt, this feels lucky, right? I mean, like, I don't want to diminish anything of Sadie, like, being very smart and piecing some things together and solving the puzzle, but still, I guess where I'm going with this, Matt, is this the turtle again? Like, is this some force pushing Sadie to where she needs to go? And then the question there is like, okay, is this the force of good bringing Sadie to Jake because Jake is going to need help to succeed? Or is this just the obdurate past once again making moves to fuck with Jake, almost as if to say, all right, fine, you get Kennedy, but we're going to take this a death for a death, a life for a life type thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are so many instances of things happening in this book where it's incredibly unclear which side is behind a certain choice, because you could totally view it both of those ways. You could view it as I'm going to give Sadie to him because he needs her help, or I'm going to create a situation whereby even if he wins, he still loses and is. I was going to say this again at the end, but like he's now motivated to just undo everything he just changed because Sadie is dead, and so that cannot stand. So it's like, well, why stop him when we can just make him undo his own choices? You know?
Yeah. And I think that this entire trip to Dallas is filled with moments like this, right? Like, as they're driving, their car blows a tire. They lurch towards a lamppost and hit it. Sadie gets bumped a bit, but she's okay. But now their car is busted. Now they have to sit and wait for a bus. The bus shows up. Oh, darn, it's completely full. Oh, but then a kind soul forces the bus driver to let them take these people on. So, like, again, something bad happens that seems to block their way. Then something good happens in order to help them move forward, right? Like, I mean, I think the clearest example of this is when he finds the car way up in Dallas. I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but when he finds a new version of his Sunline convertible, his beloved 54 Sunline convertible, just happened to be sitting there parked right where they need it to be. Like, it certainly lends credence to your idea that this is not just the one force working against Jake. These are forces in a fight, and once again, our mundane characters, our human mortal characters, are kind of trapped in the middle of this whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of see it that way. Like the you know, the purpose routinely extracts costs from people, right? Like just because it's opposed to the random doesn't mean it's good. We've talked about this before. That a lot of characters have died serving the white or serving the purpose, or however you want to phrase it. So,
So the car finally, this is Matt. I wanted to read this part to you. We saw one car with "We love you, Jackie" soaped on the back window, and another with "Get out of Texas, you commie rat" in the same location. This is, I think, the duality of man right here.
Uh-huh.
Here we go.
That's perfect. I wonder if there were really people at the time who thought JFK was a commie. That seems strange, but I mean, there probably
Most
were.
certainly, yeah.
There probably were. I'm just like, based on the historical context, I'm like, that seems weird.
In that commie has become a word that just means person I don't like.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So as they make their way into Dallas, the accident that Jake was waiting for finally happens. A dump truck plows through an intersection and right into the bus. A dump truck, by the way, that looks very familiar to the one that almost hit Jake back in Derry. So here we go. Once again, the past is repeating itself. Jake sees it in time to brace himself and Sadie, so neither of them are seriously injured. But that's not true with the other people on the bus, Matt, because the obdurate past, in its efforts to stop Jake from saving Kennedy, has just crashed a dump truck into a bus full of people.
Mm-hmm.
And now a bunch of people are hurt. And so a bunch of futures just got changed.
Yeah. The House of Cards is getting all shaken up.
So I think we kind of touched on this earlier, but I want to revisit this idea that Sadie says that the past is malevolent, right? She like has heard what Jake said and is starting to experience these things that are happening. And she says it's malevolent. And Jake says that's not quite right. But you look at stuff like this and you're like, well, it's not like wrong either, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting just to step back from protagonist goggles and consider that maybe Sadie is more right than Jake in a certain sense, because he's almost normalized how malevolent the past can be. We just talked about the ambiguity of why was Sadie sent to him, and totally valid interpretation is like, I think what you basically just said, like killing Sadie after he has successfully saved JFK is a kind of malevolent fuck you, with no like point to it, right? It's just mean.
Yeah, I agree, and just like the wanton kind of disregard for innocence, essentially, like. We see people get hurt on this bus. Like there's blood, there's wounds. I don't think anyone dies in this car accident, fortunately, but like people get hurt for sure.
Yeah.
And we saw this before, like as they're trying to do these things, as they're trying to change the future, people are getting wrapped up and pulled into this thing and hurt. It's just what happens.
Yeah. It's it has a heavy price, like you said.
So they go forward on foot with Jake's bum knee already starting to hurt him. Sadie attempts to wave down a car to drive them over to Dealey Plaza. And then the driver threatens to rob her instead of help her. So she pulls out a knife, Matt, that is the same knife her ex-husband had used on her, and slices at him. Jake comes in with the gun, and instead of getting a ride, they get a car.
Yeah. A couple of gunslingers. I love it.
I did love the detail of the knife, though, that like she takes this thing that hurt her, that damaged her, that represented this abuse to her, and she wields it as a weapon against others. I thought it was just a very good like visual touch, I think.
I agree. Love it.
So not long after this, their new car's engine blows and they find themselves once again on foot. They're on North Pearl Street. Used to work there. I know exactly. I want to reiterate once again, Matt, I know exactly where they are throughout this entire bit. Just exactly. I can close my eyes and see what it looks like right now.
That's awesome.
And Pearl Street is close to Dealey Plaza, but not that close. They buy a crutch from a beggar for $50. This sequence, Matt, is the type of thing where I'm just like, this is nuts, and I can't believe this is happening. But like, they have this argument, Sadie and this homeless guy, on the cost of the crutch, And it's just insane where they just get so mad at each other and are just like screaming at each other. And it's like right in the middle of this incredibly tense sequence where we're trying to get where we're going as fast as possible, just having these two characters like tossing verbal barbs at each other. I don't know. It just really, really stood out to me in a way that I don't remember the first time I read it.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoy that, like, we've I think pointed out a few times that like Sadie is a very central character in the story. Sadie is very, very lovable and vivid and memorable. And the idea that she would be so pissed off at this guy for trying to overcharge her with this crutch, I think, is just a delightful character touch for her.
I agree. I totally agree. It's really, really well done. Yeah. It's consistent too. I think it is consistent with her. It shows, Jake is kind of, how do I put, Jake's the boring one in the relationship between the two of them, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. Sadie always struck me as like more vibrant, more determined, more focused, and just seeing her here, I think, is really, really great. And again, emphasizes that he could not have done this by himself. Right? Sadie has been key to every single one of these moments.
Yeah.
So they take the crutch, go walking again. It's clear they're not going to get there fast enough, and that's when Jake sees it, the 1954 Ford Sunline convertible. He uses a crutch to break the window, thinks about the harmony of the past, and checks the glove box for a key. And in the exact same spot that he used to store the key, he finds the key to the car, Matt. So it doesn't seem like this is obdurance happening here, right?
Yeah. It's we've got a little column A, a little column B. God never kills one car without providing a different, identical car.
That's true. That's in the Bible, actually.
Yep, that's a phrase I've always heard growing up.
So they drive over there. They get the car parked, and they make it the next 2 blocks on foot. I love this moment. Jake, we're leaving a trail a mile wide. I know. I've got a plan. A gigantic overstatement, but it sounded good.
That's
I think that, like, based on what we're supposing the plan is, I think that's a fair assessment, right?
Yeah. It's funny, like at this point I'm like, even in retrospect, even having finished the reading, I'm not sure what the plan was. Really.
Yeah, well, I think we have to see the immediate consequences of
okay, that's a good point.
Failed assassination attempt to really see that, I think. So
good point.
Yeah. So finally, Sadie gets her first look at the book depository, and she immediately sees it as wrong and evil, just like Jake did, which I think is an interesting little wrinkle here. And we didn't point this out when Jake went back to Dealey Plaza a couple chapters ago, but he also noticed that people walking down the street will switch to the other side of the street when they walk by. Like there's something, there's an aura of this place that is physically manifested in the way people react to it, which I thought was really interesting, because I think you could read the feeling he had about this place the first time he saw it as like a metaphor for how history can shape a place and the way you look and see a place. And he comes to past with knowledge of this place. And so he sees the darkness underneath the place based on what it will eventually come to represent. But obviously it's more than just that, right? This is in the world of King, just another one of those evil places that attracts bad people to it. It's the Marston house. It's the house on Neibolt Street. It's just these places that exist in the world, the Overlook, that just bring other evil, whether it be mundane or cosmic, to it.
Right. Yep. It's got a house demon.
Oh man. Here we go. By the time they get the depository, it's 12:20. There's only 10 minutes left. They manage to get inside by remembering the name of Lee's coworker named Bonnie Ray. He warns Bonnie Ray that Lee is on the 6th floor and means to shoot the president, but the man ignores him. And I love this comment. You belong in Derry, Bonnie Ray. They specialize in not seeing what's right in front of them.
It's great. For some reason, Bonnie Ray was an extremely vivid character to me. Like, I just feel like I've met so many people who were so cheerfully, aggressively blind that he just jumped off the page.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like this is just a real guy, right?
Probably.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm looking at his signed affidavit right now.
Yeah.
So
So when I say character, I mean like characterization, because he is
yeah,
a real
yeah,
person.
yeah. I mean, I just wonder, like, the only reason I brought that up is that I was like, I wonder how much of a liberty he took with people like this. Where like, did he just assume that someone that works on the 6th floor and works with Oswald every day, that just didn't notice anything was wrong about him, um, must have been a little bit not fully there. I don't
Uh-huh.
know. I don't
I
know.
mean, yeah. Are we allowed to hold it against somebody if they basically through their blindness allow Kennedy to be killed?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think Bonnie Ray Williams was the person who saw Oswald come in with the gun,
Mm-hmm.
because there was a person that saw Oswald come in with the gun wrapped in like a blanket or
Mm-hmm.
something, and like said, "Hey, what's that?" And he was just like, I forgot what he said. Just he made up some lie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was Bonnie Ray Williams that said that. I think it was one of his other coworkers. But yeah, there's a lot of people that just, I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? It's like, I mean, you think about it. If I walked into my office tomorrow and saw like one of my coworkers walking around with something long wrapped in like a blanket or something, would I immediately go, "Oh, that's a gun. He's going to shoot someone"?
Right.
Okay, well, maybe in 2024, yes, but maybe not in 1963.
Yeah. I mean, I probably would just assume it was some piece of equipment, right?
Yeah, yeah. I see people walking around with equipment all the time at work. So
Right.
yeah. All right. So they get let in, and the long sprint up the stairs begins. At first, Sadie keeps up with Jake, but then her smoker's lung capacity catches up with her, and she has to drop back. So the guy with the bum knee is beating her up the stairs.
Yeah.
That's how bad smoking is for you.
Yeah. Well, smoking kills, as we're about to see.
Oh my God. He rounds the corner and sees Lee in his sniper's nest. He shouts out to him, and that's when we get this, Matt. He turned his head and looked at me, eyes wide, mouth hung open. For a moment, he was just Lee, the guy who had laughed and played with Junie in the bath, the one who sometimes hugged his wife and kissed her upturned face. And then his thin and somehow prissy mouth wrinkled into a snarl that showed his upper teeth. When that happened, he changed into something monstrous. I doubt you believe that, but I swear it's true. He stopped being a man and became the demonic ghost that would haunt America from this day on, perverting its power and spoiling its every good intent. If I let it. I love that. I love that so much. I think it's such an evocative idea of like, in the moment of great evil, the mundane transforms into the monstrous.
Mm-hmm.
I think is such a cool idea. And
Yeah.
becomes the thing he eventually grows to represent, like physically becoming that thing that he will eventually grow to represent, is such a fun, evocative idea.
Yeah. Yeah. It also really kind of locks in this notion we talked about a bit ago, that he views this as truly a watershed moment. Like,
Yeah.
if not for this man doing this evil act, maybe America's power would not have been perverted, and its good intent not have been spoiled, and it would still be the shining city on the hill, which opinions differ, but
Yeah.
at least within the story, the character is taking this idea seriously.
Yeah, I mean, our personal feelings on the truth of that statement almost don't matter.
Right.
It's like, to this character and to the story, these are true facts.
Right. Right.
And so that's all that matters. Yeah, yeah. It's great. I love it. He's the demonic ghost that would haunt America from this day on, perverting its power and spoiling its every good intent. Oh my God, I love that so much. Love it. So Lee ignores Jake and sights his rifle. Jake fires and misses, but he hits close enough to Lee that it causes his shot to go wide, saving JFK. He's done it, Matt. He did it.
Hooray.
You can tell how excited you are. And maybe that's because Lee's not quite done yet, right? He takes aim this time at Jake. Jake fires to try to stop him and misses again. And then we get this. My crutch struck a sack of boxes. I totter to the left, flailing with my gun hand for balance. but there was no chance of that. For just a moment, I thought of how, on the day I'd met her, Sadie had literally fallen into my arms. I knew what was going to happen. History doesn't repeat itself, but it harmonizes, and what it usually makes is the devil's music. This time, I was the one who stumbled, and that was the crucial difference. Oh man, Matt, that's rough.
Yeah, it kind of it's a very sour thought that like this meet cute they had where she fell into his arms and he accidentally felt her up is sort of like matched in this moment by her death, right?
Yeah. Except the only thing touching her chest this time, the bullet.
That's dark, man.
It's
dark.
what happens. The bullet goes right through her chest. I didn't write it.
You didn't. That's true. Let the record show.
Yeah. So that's what happens is Lee fires and misses Jake, but hits Sadie. Kennedy's Secret Service have gotten their shit together by now, though, and open fire on the 6th floor window and just completely destroy Lee Harvey Oswald. Just annihilated.
Oh.
Jake crawls to Sadie, who's been shot right in the heart. Right in the heart.
Right in the heart.
Yeah.
The Secret Service killing Oswald so promptly is the most unrealistic thing about this book.
Wait, really? You don't think they would immediately identify which direction the shot came from and just open fire as soon as they saw a person in the window?
Is that what happened? Did they shoot at Oswald at all in real life? I actually don't know. I'm honestly.
Well, no, because he got the fuck out of there. Like he fired 3 times. The third bullet killed Kennedy, and then he was gone.
Perhaps.
In this, he fires once, misses, fires another time, not out the window, and then is still like sitting in the open window.
Okay.
For moments, at least.
Yes, perhaps I'm thinking in terms of different timescales, but yeah, I'm just giving a hard time to the Secret Service detail who let the president die and will never live down the shame. Obviously,
you'd lose your job, right? Like,
so yeah, I think so. Also, I'm pretty sure I watched like a thing at one point about this like theory that
oh my god,
that one of the Secret Service agents, like in his rush to get between the shooter and the president, just like shot Kennedy in the head with his rifle that he was holding, which
I'm sorry I laughed. That's awful, but I don't think that's what happened.
It probably isn't. But the thing about this is why I have like the attitude I have about conspiracy theories and like why I don't really hold it against conspiracy theorists. Because it's like when you watch a thing like this documentary or whatever it was that I saw, I don't think it was a full documentary. I feel like it was like a shorter thing. But it's like it gives you all of the evidence for, none of the points against, and just leaves you with this sense of like, well, I guess based on what I just saw, it seems plausible, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, in that very specific situation, yes, I think that would convince people. The Earth is round, though, Matt. I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is the next chapter is going to start, and it's going to be like Kennedy shot, and it's going to be because it was actually the Secret Service guy who accidentally shot Kennedy.
Okay. Yeah. That would be quite the twist.
Yeah.
So Jake crawls to Sadie, and we get this. Jake, what, honey? She smiled. How we danced. Which, fuck you, Steven. Like, yeah. Come on, man.
Yeah.
That's rough.
I'm not a crying man, but you're trying to make me one, Steven.
So she dies. And this, I mean, Matt, this is the kind of reveal that works so well, right? Because as we said at the very beginning of the episode, like this is of course the way how it had to always end, right? Like this is what it came down to. Of course this was going to be it. Of course he was going to successfully prevent Lee Harvey Oswald from killing John F. Kennedy, but instead he was going to kill the love of his life, Sadie Dunhill. Mm-hmm. That is of course,
yep.
Right?
Yep. So mean. I mean, it's mean, but it also comes together very elegantly to the
Yeah.
extent that I was actually kind of impressed by the symmetry and beauty of it,
Yep.
as
Yep.
much as I was saddened by it.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And that's where we get this. I have never been a crying man, but almost any man who's lost the woman he loves would. Don't you think? Yes, but I didn't because I knew what had to be done. What?
Huh? Not sure. Not sure.
But I mean, isn't this is yes, that's a fun moment to leave us on. If I say fun, in a relative sense, but it's cool that we could sit back here and go like, oh, I get it now, because now, Jake, you have to choose between saving John F. Kennedy and saving Sadie, because you could just go up some stairs and come right back downstairs, and she's alive again, but he's dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So, and I was bugged by this. I was maybe even more bugged than I was by the question of like, would you trade your life for JFK? Because it's like, he can bring Sadie back, true, but it's it's going to be a different Sadie in a sense, or like more specifically, the last however many years of her life are going to be totally different. So like she won't die. She won't die an untimely death, but she will certainly lose the life that they had together. He's not going to pull a primer and reenact their whole relationship together. And like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I suspect the best he could do would be to just go back through the door as quickly and efficiently as possible, go kill Oswald, and then just go back through the door again and not bother with, Jody, Texas, or Sadie, or any of that. But I don't know how practical that is. Like, there's a reason why he made the choices he made. I mean, I guess it's true. He could have killed Oswald much earlier if he wanted to, just not like immediately, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, it is kind of a fun thought experiment, and again, I use fun in a relative way. Is it is the moments she had with him, like, you would be erasing those moments, and those moments are important and they matter, but she would get to live, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Essentially, like, his choices are not between like the idea of now living happily ever after with Sadie is basically gone no matter what.
right.
Because again, he is not going to go through this whole thing again. And even if he does, it's not going to be exact. It's not going to be in the same way. So it will be essentially a different relationship. But I don't like if I could, if it was my wife or whatever, girlfriend, wife, fiance, whatever, and like I could do something that means they get to live again, even if it means without me. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Like let me make it clear right now. I would pick my wife over John F. Kennedy 1,000,000 times out of 1,000,000.
Right.
Like no question, absolutely no question.
Yeah, let me be clear, because I sounded like I was kind of equivocating, like, well, what's the point of saving her if you don't get to like have the relationship? It's like, no, I get that he would still be motivated to save her. I'm just like,
you were just defining the parameters, which is not they get to spend their lives together. Like it's not be happy with Sadie forever or save JFK. That's not the equation anymore.
Exactly. Which to me is still a bad outcome, like a tragic outcome, right?
Yeah.
So I guess part of me saying all that is to express, like, I don't like you, like you knew what had to be done, but you should probably still take a minute and kind of cry. Jake.
Yeah, like it's like you read that sentence and you think we're leading to a point where, yes, I finally cried, right? Like
right.
This is the thing that started from the very beginning, and it's like, I've never been a crying man, but any man who's lost a woman he loved would, don't you think? Yes, and I did, because I just lost the woman I love. But then that turn, and then you're like, that is so evocative, especially when I accidentally plan a live event in between our chapters, and you have to hold on this moment for 2 weeks without getting to read a single page of what's to come, right?
Especially, yeah.
So suddenly you have to hold on that moment for a long time before you get to figure out what he means and what we're going to do and how is this all going to end. And we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know for 2 weeks.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The good thing is we're about to wrap up and you get to read to the end of the book now. There's no stopping.
True. That's true.
Go.
So let's wrap up so I can listen from now until I go to bed.
All right, which will presumably be 5 minutes. So
right.
It'll probably be tomorrow. Yeah. No, I think this is a great place to leave it. And there is a part of me that feels really bad for making you hold on this cliffhanger, but I think this is a really fun place to pause too, right? Like everyone else reading this book normally gets to turn the page and find out exactly what all that meant. We are forced to sit here and be like, oh man, what does this mean? What are we saying here? And get to ponder that and think about that. Because yeah, like to repeat myself, I really thought this was going to be the moment that we're subverting the I don't cry thing. I really, really did. And again, I'm not saying that moment is not to come. It could be. That could be the last beat of the story. But it's not here.
Right.
And this is where I expected it to be.
Yeah, me too. I literally, was like, and here we go, and then it doesn't. It's almost like a double subversion because it's
yeah. It's really good stuff. It's really good stuff. It does make you want to turn that page right away, even though you're not allowed to.
Yep.
Yeah, but we will find out next week because we're going to finish the book. We're going to read part 6, The Green Card Man, and then the epilogue, and then we're gonna wrap it up with this book. I can't believe it. It's been a while. This is episode 10, so it's been 2.5 months, but longer because we took a break in there. But man,
yeah. Well, I'll be glad to finish, but sad to see it go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. That's next week. But for now, we have to completely change gears and talk about something that happened a month ago, which was our discussion question from episode 9, which 3 weeks ago? I don't know, Matt. What was the question?
Was Jake overly harsh to George de Mohrenschildt and Jennifer Caltrop? If you'll recall, he really sort of blew a gasket at both of these characters in different ways. And I think we talked a bit about what that was saying about his character development, but we just wanted to let everyone weigh in on this situation. So first of all, Walk-In D22 says, to answer the question, Jake's responses were fine and your feelings about them are valid.
All right, there we go.
Yeah.
short and simple.
Yeah, this is my new favorite answer. Everyone is welcome to just give this answer to any question we give from now on. Just be like, well, Matt and Scott, your opinions on this are fine, and I don't have any criticisms of you or disagreements.
My opinion is better than fine. Sorry.
My opinion is fantastic. I don't remember what it was now, but
neither do I.
Yeah.
Who knows? That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
DJ Nedelko says, I love how we all insert our agreements on how Jake treated Mohrenschildt and Jessica and then go on to add our own extra fun comments. I'll do the same. I agree. We all hate Mo, and the guy had this coming. With Jessica, on the other hand, if we saw this in public, even in 1963, I feel like it would be a cause for intervention. But like the guy said, at this point, Jake is probably reacting proportionally to how stressed out he is on the inside. DJ Nedelko goes on to thank us and everyone for the Bangor trip that at the time of this answer hadn't happened yet. I'm not going to read that because I feel like we tooted our own horns about that enough.
We had a whole episode about it. But
thank you so much.
Cool.
And yeah, I feel like as we go through these answers, the common sentiment is going to be like, de Mohrenschildt, fine. Jessica, I think that's the common sentiment.
That kind of makes me want to construct an argument for the opposite, but we'll see. Okay, Row 2424 says, I think that Jake was reasonably a jerk to Mohrenschildt due to Mohrenschildt being such a piece of shit, at least in this book. but was probably too hard on Caltrip. I can see why he was harsh on Caltrip, but him being very stressed, with him being very stressed at this point in his mission, but that doesn't justify how extreme he was to her. He should probably have just been somewhat annoyed and leave it at that, or scold her a little bit. But the way that he handled it was not all right.
You know what I think this is missing? Thinking about this now, as a slight critique of this book, I think this is missing a moment in the present in which Jake wants to confront someone but doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of compare to this
Mm-hmm.
and compare favorably to this. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about the moment, the only moment that I can think of in the present where Jake wanted to confront someone was when the kids were being mean to Henry,
Yeah.
right? And he wanted to confront them, but the reason he didn't confront them was not because some internal inability to be confrontational in conflict in situations. It was because Henry told him not to.
Right.
And we intentionally constructed a metaphor around, should you change the past? Should you try to help save people? Like, is this the right thing to do? I think that's what that moment meant. Certainly. But maybe that's what this is missing, right? When we're trying to draw parallels and we're trying to kind of figure out what these moments mean and what they're trying to say about the character and the character's transformation, we don't have like a baseline in this specific thing.
Well, I agree with that. And it's really interesting to me because I don't think that Stephen King, clearly he knows far more about literature and writing than me. So he would be aware of the idea that you're supposed to give your characters a flaw. And I don't think he does that in like a formal fashion, because I always find like I'm sort of fitting shapes to clouds when it comes to like, what is the flaw of the character? Like some characters you can, like Roland, you can, but like this character, and to do the Doom McKee reference, character's name I just blanked on, even though I just said it a couple minutes ago. Edgar. Characters who I think they have flaws. I think you can see them. I think you can figure them out, but I don't think they're like written around the flaw, right?
Yeah.
So this is one of those cases where I kind of agree. Like the sort of classic novel writing thing would be like, establish firmly in the beginning what the flaw is, and then show growth, right?
Yeah.
And that's not quite the structure of the story.
It's not. And like, as I was saying it, I was like, this feels so formulaic that I feel like I would hate it actually if it happened. Like it just feels so like by the book characterization that I actually kind of hated myself as I was saying it.
Well, I mean, like if it's done well, you don't see it as being formulaic. But,
fair.
Fair. Like you're correct. Like and the way King writes is extreme, like authentic to the extreme, and so I can see why it's like, if that moment didn't come up, that moment didn't come up. That was not part of the Song of the Turtle. So, anyway, I like, this is a fun conversation, because I've been thinking more and more about like what was Jake's flaw, because I don't think he doesn't have a flaw. I just can't quite name it. So I'm hoping I have something smarter to say next week.
Yeah. Busy Dad 82 says, I think his treatment of Morn's child was reasonable, considering Jake seems to be getting his jollies from messing with him as much as Morn's child was winding up Oswald. Caltrip, on the other hand, although somewhat satisfying in the moment, seemed really out of character. It has been years since I read this, so I don't remember if this is how it turns out, but it almost seems like he's psyching himself up to deal with Oswald, someone who's been textually humanized by dehumanizing others. It seems like he has to disassociate from his torn feelings and worry more about what he thinks he has to do, and dehumanizing these other characters is practice for that. Ooh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I like that. That he is, as like a batting practice almost.
Yeah, I like that idea, or related to that. It's kind of adjacent to that. Just like he's trying to be more the man who could commit another cold-blooded murder of a person who he now has sympathy for.
Yeah,
and it's kind of tearing him up, and this is a consequence of that. It's more than just like, oh, he's stressed out. It's I like that. I like this idea quite a bit.
Yeah,
it's cool.
I also, I don't think we said this, and again, it was just weeks ago, so who knows? I don't think we drew the line as close as we should have. That like one of the things that we constantly see with Lee Harvey Oswald is being verbally abusive and physically abusive, but mostly verbally abusive to his wife. And so like I definitely think we were intentionally trying to draw a line between that and how Jake is handling Caltrip. Perhaps he's been too empathetic with this guy, that some of the Oswald is rubbing off on him. I mean, we already talked, several times throughout the course of this book about the ways in which these two characters are meant to parallel each other in some ways. And I just think this is another example of this.
Yeah, I think you're right. Camping cats niches, maybe nachos. They say they're first time answerer. They say, I agree in that I'm on board with how he treated Morenchild. It felt justified and satisfying. He was getting what he gives and all that. However, I'm also on board with the abuse heaped on Caltrip. King did such a great job with getting the woman under my modern feminist skin. I didn't see it from a bystander's perspective of a big, strong man scaring a lady. I saw it from my perspective as a woman enraged by another woman perpetuating harmful mores that only keep everyone down and trapped in little repressive cages. I felt like a hype man behind Jake, pumping my fist, yelling, "Get her!" It didn't occur to me that it was over the top until it was discussed on the show, because it felt so good to blow off that steam. That's just been steadily building. In real life, I probably would have asked Jake what his problem was and offered to help Jessica, but that's because I have empathy and concern for people stuck in shitty situations, unlike a certain nosy school board hypocrite. Yeah, right. So this is what I'll say along the lines of like defending his aggression toward Jessica is like, Stephen King and many authors often invite you to cheer for people doing bad things. And I don't think we should beat ourselves up when we find ourselves in that situation, because it's very normal and very human. And this woman was awful, very, very awful. And then Jake was super mean to her. And I think we all in that moment felt a little get her, yep. Jake. And then, the point of the question, though, is like, for the sake of analysis, for the sake of discussion, we like to step back and say, are we meant to see more in this? Or like, is there something we can draw out of this beyond just like, King gave us a moment of transient moment of satisfaction? It's like, does this mean more than that? Right. So I think both of those things can be true. Like, I think it can be like, yeah, that was clearly meant to be satisfying, but also perhaps concerning at the same time.
Yeah, I think so. But then also, like, I look at the way everything wrapped up this week, and I'm not as convinced about that, right? Like, I'm just not as confident in my assessment that, we are definitely supposed to be troubled by this behavior, because it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere.
Yeah, and maybe we're not supposed to be troubled. I think once again we implicitly are casting intentionality onto the author when it's like he just wanted to have Jake yell at the character.
No, we've never done that before, Matt, and we never will.
And we never will, yeah.
All right, Steve Living Room says yes for Morenchild, no for Caltrip. Boom, done. Short answer. Love it.
Loving these 6-word answers. Charles Lorian says, I can't help but wonder what Morenchild will think when the Beatles become a thing. John Lennon, why does that sound so familiar? As for Caltrip, well, I got almost as much satisfaction from that encounter as I did when Jake flipped off Dr. Keene in Derry. Yes,
and
yeah, go ahead.
That is okay, right? Yep. Like, that's fiction. You don't have to feel guilty about feeling good about someone telling off a shitty character in fiction. There's no consequences.
Yeah.
It's a book.
Yeah, none of this matters.
Feel good about it. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Shoot her. Fuck Jake, shoot her in the face.
Yeah.
Hate her. Hope she dies.
Yeah, he should have killed her. You're right.
Yeah, totally. Okay, I think we took it a little too far. The John Lennon Beatles thing is fun because I did think about that too. I mean, I think like realistically, like probably no way he remembers the name of the CIA agent that scared the shit out of him. Like, it's probably like his name is not something he realistically would remember.
You're right, but he is going to be waiting around for his oil leases to materialize.
He's gonna be so pissed about those oil leases. It's gonna be great.
He is.
It'll be really great.
Yeah.
All right. Those were great answers. I enjoyed that conversation a whole lot. That was great. I'm glad we got to do that.
Me too.
Matt, what is our question, and I guess our final discussion question for 11/22/63? What's it going to be? We kind of already told them, but
yeah. Would you give your life to save John F. Kennedy?
And as a follow-up, I think would be fun. If the answer is no, is there anyone that's not like a personal family member or friend? Like, how far out of your sphere of influence before you would go back in time and give your life to save a person? It's a fun experiment.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, have fun with it. Again, there's no no one's gonna judge you if you're like, no, fuck that guy. No, it's pure hypothetical.
Right.
Yeah. All right, that is it for us this week. As we said earlier, next week we're finishing the book. We're doing it. Another one on the belt for Matt.
Awesome. See, now I'm a constant reader. So official constant reader. So that means that.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
I think we actually, if you haven't listened to the actual episode and just listen to our recap, we made a joke about you being a constant reader now, but I don't think we actually said on the podcast what we did. Which is I gave you a diploma that says you're a constant reader now.
Yes, and I have it sitting right next to me with all of my other cool gifts and such that I got from the trip.
We got so many cool gifts. Thank you, everyone. But yeah, Matt's officially by law a constant reader now.
That's right. I'm so happy. Anyway, remember you can reach us via email at kingslingerspod@gmail.com or over on Twitter at kingslingerspod. Also, please head on over to the subreddit at reddit.com/r/doofmedia to answer this final discussion question.
Yeah, there's never been a better time to check out the subreddit because like people that came to Bangor are just like invigorated and are just posting a whole bunch. It's so fun to see everyone. I mean, they were doing it all throughout the weekend, but they've just kept doing it, which is really fun. People keep posting pictures and just anything they're seeing. It's I really feel like the event has really like people are talking and hanging out and just chatting more, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I agree.
You can also answer the discussion question there. That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Also, you have to check out our merch store. Go to doofmedia.com. Sorry, Jesus. doofmedia.myshopify.com, where we will find a bunch of cool. If you're like looking at the subreddit and you're seeing people in all these like cool Stephen King t-shirts and mugs and stuff, and you're like, wow, that shirt's awesome. I want that shirt. You can get it.
Hell yeah.
doofmedia.myshopify.com.
Got some really good shirts.
Yeah,
I agree.
Some really good shirts there. Yeah.
Awesome. Also, if you like Kingslingers and you want to support us, then please consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/doofmedia. We have for years now and continue to post bonus content there every month. So if this just isn't enough Kingslingers for you, there is a whole nother Stephen King related bonus podcast over there.
Yeah, and you never know when it's going to end up being a trivia question on a trivia night on how many episodes and what they're about. So you might as well support us to listen to all those so you're ready to win at trivia.
It's the only way to be sure.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And I think it's well worth your money as well. I think there's a lot of good stuff on there. But of course, if you cannot afford to donate, we absolutely understand. You can just follow us for free on that Patreon just to keep abreast of what we're doing. You won't get any of the bonus content on there, but you can just see when we post and things like that. It's totally free. You can also help us out by sharing this podcast with all your Stephen King loving friends. You can share it on social media. You guys have been doing a great job of that. Please keep it up. And you can help us by leaving a rating and a review. And oh
no.
What books have we burned?
I think Pet Sematary, Cujo.
All right. Guess what?
What?
The Dark Half is now the no half This is burnt. It's burned.
No,
It's burned. You really wanted to read that one too. I think Robin Firth specifically talked about how she really enjoyed that book, but I guess no one will ever know because it no longer exists because you people out there have not left an updated review.
Yep. It's real shame.
Yeah. I've just, it's like we went from the high of Bangor to this.
Yeah.
It's like, I've never been more disappointed.
The bottom.
Yeah. Rest in peace, the dark half.
Yep.
I can't even make jokes about it because you haven't read the book, so they just won't land for you at all.
It's true.
There's definite jokes to be had here, but
I believe you.
But you'll never know because you'll never be able to read it ever. So it's really too bad.
Yep.
Really too bad. All right, folks. We will see you back here. Matt, I didn't check all the places for reviews, so I just checked Apple and didn't see any there and just concluded. So
hilarious. Okay.
You know what? It's like Jody on trivia. Our answer is the right answer.
There you go.
And so that's our answer. So yeah, please leave those rating and reviews. They really do help. We mean it. Please. As we start to get into the end, it's gonna be really important, especially as we start up with our next thing. It's gonna be even more important. So please keep those coming.
Yeah.
All right, folks. We'll see you back here next week for the conclusion of 11/22/63. Long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.